Hello, welcome back to Music Theory Logic. My name's Andrew, and today's going to be another music theory breakdown. Now, I've got my tie-dye on in honor of this, the vibe of this track. I've really enjoyed this one. We're going to be looking at Peaches by Justin Bieber, featuring Giveon and Daniel Caesar. So here we are inside of the Logic session. If you haven't seen one of these before, basically what I do is I recreate the instrumental layer by layer with my ear, so that I can show you the scale that the notes come from, the chord progression, each layer on its own, and we can talk a little bit about music theory, since I love doing that, and this is a good way for me to try to help some others out there while I improve my own production chops. So this is a consolidated version of the actual instrumental. I'm going to go ahead and play this. This is my rendition of Peaches by Justin Bieber. Here we go. Our bridge. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. Now, hopefully that sounded pretty close to the original. I was really excited. Some of these I find, I feel like more confident in my version, and this was one that I felt like, wow, like it actually worked out pretty well. So, and that should tell you that no one is like perfect in music, we're human beings. We try our best. That's all we can do. So let's go ahead and talk about the music theory for this song, and then we're going to go through each part. Luckily for us, this song is in our most basic key. It's in C major. All right. We could also consider it to be in the key of A minor, but good thing for us is both of those scales only have the white keys. So if you're looking at a piano, the white keys that you see have the notes from your C major scale and your A minor. The chord progression for this song is basically descending diatonic seventh chords, fancy way of saying, from the scale. So the notes we have in the scale are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I was about to say A minor, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's a little bit easier to remember because of our alphabet. But basically, every single one of these chords comes from skipping scale tones. That's why we call it diatonic, from the scale. It's a fancy way of what that means. And basically, the chords that we see here, the chord progression in the song is an F major 7, that's F, A, C, E. An E minor 7th, that's E, G, B, D. A D minor 7th, that is D, F, A, C. And finally, in a C major 7, our main tonic, that's C, E, G, B. Let's hear our scale, and then we'll play our chord progression. Nice. Here's the chords. All right. Hopefully, just from that, you can tell that that is the chord progression that we hear from the song. So first of all, seventh chords are awesome. They're slightly different colors, if you will, than just major or minor chords. A major seventh is basically a major chord with the seventh scale tone from a major scale. You could think of that as one away from being the octave. So major seventh's always going to be one note down from the octave. A minor seventh is similar. It has a minor chord on the bottom, and it has a minor seventh on the top. You could think of that as starting an octave up and walking down 2 notes. Cool. And we basically just find those 2 chord versions. Then the main fun thing about this song, and sort of tying into what I said in the intro with why I'm wearing tie-dye, but this song feels like a really, really like soulful and almost vintage kind of vibe. And we're going to try to figure out why it has that sort of feeling. A lot of that is the bass, but let's go chord layer by layer. I'm playing basically a piano that is filtering off or lowering everything like above 3,000 hertz. That is then all going into a reverb. The reverb is very, very wet with reverb, and it's playing the same chords we saw in the beginning. The ones we heard. Cool. Then in the intro of this song, we get this like lead instrument on a sort of a pad-ish analog synth kind of sound. So in that instrument, we basically have the major seventh that's happening from our scale tone, E down an octave to E back to E. Then we're basically doing a scale run from A all the way down to C, A, G, F, E, D, C. We get a D that's also in the minor seventh of our next chord. So here we're in an E minor seventh, that's in our chord. Then we go E, G, up to A, back to G. All of those notes are also in the chord we have at the moment. We then get E, D, E, down to an A. We had F sharp major 7, E minor 7th, D minor 7th. So this one, we don't have the minor 7th happening. We have the 5th, that's the A. And then finally, we're playing 1, then the 7 from the scale, which is a C, then B. Let's look at that while we listen. All right. So we get an 8-bar or 4-bar intro right before those drums happen. We are at 90 beats per minute, so we could have called this 180, although that would be a little fast, I think. But fundamentally the same thing mathematically. Cool. Let's go through our drum section next. We get some pretty cool live sounding drums. This is just MIDI programmed for us. We get a tom right before, like a mid tom on an 8th note right before the drop. We're then basically getting a standard backbeat. Snares happening on 2 and 4. We have some cool hi-hat stuff happening with an open hi-hat and the closed hi-hat. For the most part, our hi-hats are doing swung 8th notes. Then the last one, we get an open hi-hat closing up right away. Let's solo out those drums just so we can hear that from the fill. Nice. So most of the drums are this 4-bar phrase that's repeating. It's basically the same thing that I just mentioned. We only get the open hi-hat in the first measure. We then get pretty standard 8th note cymbals. The last hi-hat of each of the next measures happens like a little early. Again, adding to just the human feel of those drums. I would venture to guess that is a real person playing. This instrumental, the reason it sounds vintage, it almost sounds like a band jamming together, which I love. Being a band, former band member myself. I miss the days of playing live music, although I love making videos for you and being in the studio. The grass is always greener, I suppose. In the very last measure, we get some 2/16th note hi-hats happening into basically our open hi-hat, only it's not closing up right away. That is basically what's happening. And then we get, right before our hook sections, we get a little snare roll. It sounds like this. And that is basically a snare roll happening on our snare. So I have like a louder hit, or I think the kit labels it a rim shot, although it doesn't fully sound like a rim shot to me. But we basically have a 30-second note going into 2/16th notes, followed by 2/8th notes. So basically getting smaller or slower there. Cool. Moving along, let's add in our bass. Now, what you were hearing of the bass and the guitar, that was me playing the actual parts on a bass and a guitar. The bass and drums sound like this. Cool. For even though I played the notes live, I wrote in all of the different parts in MIDI so that we could look at them. Basically, the notes that the bass is using for almost all the parts are the 1 from the chord and the 5 from the chord. So on F, we have F major 7, we have F, A, C, and E. Bass is playing an F and a C. It goes like root, root, and then 5 root, 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 5 root. Keeps happening. Root, root, 5 root. This note should be here on a B. Root, root, 5 root. I don't know. Had little notes wrong there. Root, root, 5 root. And then there's a little walk up thing that happens. From C, it goes all the way back up to F, C, D, E, back to F. And that's repeating. So nothing crazy happening there. Our guitar whole note chords are basically playing the same thing that we saw on the piano. All together, that sounds like this. Now, I doubled up, so I played the chords on the guitar, the same chords, as in F major 7, E minor 7, D minor 7, C major 7, but I played it 2 different ways. This is a really common recording technique where you get sort of even bigger sounding or more interesting sounding voicings by combining multiple voicings of the same chord. That sounds like this now. Super close. One layer I didn't mention was on the first hi-hat. We basically have an instrument that's hitting on the 1 on the hi-hat, and then it's got an 8th note delay tied to it. It's kind of subtle filtered in the background. You'll hear it now. You hear the delay there. If I went to 8th note triplet. Note. A really important layer to the groove. If you go back and listen to the original, which I always encourage anybody listening to a breakdown going after you watch one of these videos, go back and listen to the original and try to hear the elements I've highlighted in the track. And you'll notice that cymbal delay, especially if you put headphones on, really goes a long way to fill out the groove of this tune. So cool. Then we have the live instruments happening on top. Now, in reality, it's just a guitar, although I doubled it up with that pad synth we heard in the beginning, just again so we could really talk about the notes. All together, it's going to sound like this. instrumental brings a smile to my face. I love the sentiment of the track as well. You know, I get my peaches from Georgia, I get my weed from California. It's really a song about national pride, if you will. not fully, but you can't beat peaches from Georgia, and I hear you can't beat marijuana from California, but I certainly wouldn't know anything about that. So let's look at the main melody notes. Now here, we basically have the stuff happening. I'm going to name out the notes. It goes C, F. That's a 5-1. Interestingly enough, those are the two notes we use in the bass. Coincidence? I think not. They sound good together. If it sounds good once, it sound good in another instrument. So it goes C, F, C, F, B. That note is in our E minor 7th. That's the 5. It goes back to C, F. Now, interestingly enough, those notes are in that chord there. That's the D minor 7th. D minor 7th has D, F, A, C. So we still have F and C. Coincidence? Think not. But again, music theory doesn't allow us to just like churn out stuff that's going to have soul and sound good. It's really just a way for us to understand what this probably group of absolutely prolific players, because I can't imagine Justin Bieber, biggest artist on the planet, having anything but like the best performers. So I should have done my homework, seen to look up who's playing on this, but I imagine some of the best of the best. Finally, we get a over the 4th measure, B, C, B, E. Now that's the 1 chord, C, E, G, B. C, E, G, B. All of those notes are from our chord there. So it's not really like an arpeggio, but we could think of like every single melody note we have. There's not a single one that's out of key. The second time it starts to change, it goes to C, A, C, A, B, which also works because those notes are also in that 1 chord. This is now F major 7 again. We don't hear that instrument because we hear another one filling in. And then finally we do this cool fast run. It's going B, C, B, F, B, C, B, E, B, C, B, E, G, A, C, E. And then the melody is basically going to jam up on the E. It stays on E. It goes down to like the E or F, E, D, E, D, C, a little sequence. Then it goes E, G, A, G, E. We're going to play this whole section and watch it. Basically, it almost sounds to me like you have a really great band together. They're jamming on these changes, and then a producer like myself or somebody else comped those takes, because it feels very like free. Again, like it's alive, like there's some soulful jamming, but we have the same thing that happens twice. So this is like a 16 measure phrase that just happens identically. Let's listen to all of that. Loop kind of wrong there. I should have had it go all the way, but hopefully that sounded all correct. Hopefully you saw those notes. There was one layer of guitar that I'm realizing I didn't chart into MIDI. It's basically an arpeggio of the D minor chord into the C major. It sounds like this on its own. In context, Now that riff I actually did have in here. That's that E J E J E G A G. Cool. So we're almost through the entire song. Let's jump over to the bridge. Now the bridge, harmonically, nothing new happens. We get a new instrument of a pad with much more sort of transparent, like filtering that's happening on it. That gives it some movement there. And then we get a lead guitar that's playing a new set of notes. It's going from G A to up to the top G, then back to E. The next time it changes, it goes G A up to G, then D C. This pattern basically repeats the whole time: G A G D C G A G D C. The first time, subtle difference, and it's filtering in there, so you barely even notice it. Altogether, that sounds like this. Now, I should say, you hear the guitar is sliding, so like I'm sliding into that second note. Again, we're seeing this, but hearing the actual live guitar that I played. But those are the fundamental notes. So G, D, C. So this really makes sense because the whole phrase is ending on the 1. The C, that's our main chord. We're going G, D, C. All of those notes are in our scale. That repetition of that one note creates kind of some tension here that feels really good when we get to the final verse. So I'm going to play it here to the end of the instrumental, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Back to it. Awesome. So once again, I had a lot of fun making this breakdown. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did enjoy that, you would help me out a lot if you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. I come out with 2 videos each week. All these videos are geared at trying to demystify music production and to give all of you out there that are willing to put in the work and the time, the resources to improve your chops. So once again, my name's Andrew. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to be kind to your fellow human being. Go listen to that original song. Thanks to Justin Bieber and the producers and everything for giving us a song that I do feel like has a really awesome groove. So I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.